get the meeting started. That being said, today is Tuesday, May 10th. This is the City Council meeting of the City of Union City. This meeting is also being held via teleconference, so that for those that are in the council chambers for the first time in a long time, you see the screens in the council chambers, and there are folks participating via Zoom, and they will have the opportunity when we do get to the public comment portions of the agenda to speak. That being said, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, so if we would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is our third meeting back in the council chambers, so we may not have all the bugs worked out yet, but we'll see how it goes this evening. So that being said, Anna, may we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Gakoskas.
Here.
Councilmember Singh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Patino.
Here.
And Mayor Ducci-Bernacci.
Here. Earlier this evening, we had a closed session, and there is nothing to report out. Back to this agenda, item 2 is unfinished business, and we have none this evening. Item 3 is proclamations and presentations. Anna, may we have 3A, please?
Proclamation recognizing June 2022 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th, 2022 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
Thank you, Anna. And before I get started reading these, I will mention that because of COVID, what we will be doing is after I read the proclamation, I will come down to present the proclamation to the recipient or recipients, but we won't, as we've had in the past, do any kind of group pictures. Down the road we will, but as we're still adjusting to COVID, we'll just try and be very safe this evening. So, as Anna said, tonight we are recognizing June 2022 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. I might add, you may have noticed I said June and we're still in May. The reason for this is a very important proclamation, and this is what worked into the recipients' schedules, and we were more than happy to make sure that this was as publicized as could be. So here we go. Whereas, although the elder population is the largest growing segment in the country, elder abuse is one of the most underreported crimes in the United States. And victims of elder abuse include both men and women of diverse educational, socioeconomic, or ethnic backgrounds who have been victimized by strangers and or by persons they know who may occupy a position of trust. And the 2020-2022 coronavirus pandemic has impacted everyone, especially elders, by continuing to make fragile living situations more stressful, thereby putting elders more at risk for their physical safety and well-being, as well as giving those who commit scams an opportunity to morph existing scams, as well as create new scams, to prey upon the concerns and fears of vulnerable members of society in order to obtain their money and property. And whereas the Alameda County Social Services Agency, Adult Protective Services, and the Ombudsman Service of Alameda County, Empowered Aging, respond to reports from individuals, concerned citizens, social service and health providers, and law enforcement representatives about elders who may be physically or financially abused, neglected, or exploited. And whereas the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, its Elder Protection Unit, and its Victims Witness Division provide a network of services to elders who are in danger of becoming or who have become victims of abuse, and which services include holding community workshops on Zoom or when allowed in person to promote crime prevention awareness, assisting with locating services for elders, working with the Union City Police Department as well as with other professionals, and prosecuting cases of elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. And whereas the Union City Ruggieri Senior Center provides a comprehensive array of services as well as social and recreational programs to meet the needs of the elder population, thereby enhancing their quality of life and helping them to remain active, healthy, safer, and independent. And whereas the City of Union City recognizes that both the awareness of elder abuse and neglect, as well as reporting instances of suspected elder abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation, particularly in this stressful time of a global pandemic, will help keep our elders and communities safer. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Union City does hereby proclaim June 2022 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th, 2022 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in the City of Union City, in recognition of elders being valuable members of our city and having the right to live safely and securely in our community. Now, this evening, we do have 3 people here to accept this proclamation. One is on Zoom and 2 are actually here, and I'll come down in just a minute to hand this to you, but I'll go ahead and introduce the 3 of you. We have Cheryl Poncini, Deputy District Attorney. I'm just having problems with words this evening, it seems. But in any case, Cheryl is here, and again, she's the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, the Elder Protection Unit. Then we also have, by way of Zoom, Charmaine Brent, the Program Manager for Alameda County Empowered Aging Ombudsman. And last but not least, Marietta Arroyo, Field Supervisor with Adult Protective Services. So I'll come on down and present this to you, and I know we're going to hear from all 3 of you. Testing.
That's all. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we're still working on those bugs.
That's okay, not a problem. I'm just glad that we're all here in person. This is really a treat. So, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, and residents of Union City, good evening. It is my honor to be here in person on behalf of DA Nancy O'Malley to accept the city's proclamation declaring June as Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Union City. By my count, it has been 3 years since I was last before the council on this issue. And that 3 years feels as though it has been much longer. Unfortunately, the issues addressed in the proclamation still exist. Elders are still abused, still neglected, and still financially exploited. COVID exacerbated the situation by making it more difficult for APS, the Ombudsman, law enforcement, and the DA's office to make contact with possible victims due to social distancing requirements and actual quarantines. The usual lines of communication were interrupted or severed completely with a temporary shutdown of numerous services. Yet despite that bleak picture, agencies and organizations found ways to get around those problems. Technology helped reduce the sense of isolation, and programs went from in-person to online. It was not a perfect world, but I know in my office, many of us continued to come into the office daily while practicing CDC guidelines, while others worked from home. The bottom line is, we found ways to keep people informed. I developed Zoom presentations about abuse and neglect, and I continue to be a resource, as were other members of the unit. Our victim witness advocates continue to assist victims of neglect, abuse, and exploitation. Getting back to normal to remind the community that the issue of elder mistreatment still exists is important. APS, Ombudsman, the DA's office, along with law enforcement, never went away. We are still here and are honored to share this message with you and the Union City community. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. Marietta.
Hi, good evening. Again, my name is Marietta Arroyo. I am an Adult Protective Services Supervisor. And on behalf of Adult Protective Services, we want to say thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for this proclamation. And just like Cheryl said, we worked tirelessly during the pandemic to continue to be out in the community. As you know, with Adult Protective Services, we get several reports of concern of elders and dependent adults in the community. And we still went out there as much as we can, just like she said, with CDC guidelines, and went out and did our outreach, continued with our investigations. I want to say thank you to the Union City Fire Department and Police Department for our collaboration. They were very essential to our getting out to the community as best as we can and with our investigations. And we appreciate you acknowledging that next month is Elder Abuse Awareness Month and June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. We continue our efforts to outreach, to become visible in the community, because as we've learned that not a lot of people know about Adult Protective Services or Ombudsman, or that we have an elder abuse unit. So we're not known, so we're trying to be as best as we can to outreach and be visible in the community and let us know it's not just always about abuse. It's also about linkage to services, being aware of the community, and knowing that there are programs like the Senior Center here that does provide social services, community resources, legal services as well. So we want to continue that outreach. So thank you again on behalf of my program manager, Charles Edwards, our directors, Sonia Frost and Faith Battles. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Marietta. And our next speaker is by way of Zoom, Charmaine. So Anna, if you can promote her or whatever it is you need to do.
I'm here if you guys can hear me okay.
We can hear you.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, the Union City City Council, the residents of Union City. My name is Charmaine Brent. I work for Empowered Aging, but I'm the program manager over the Long-Term Care Ombudsman program in Alameda County. I've served in this role since 2019. And when we took over the program for Alameda County, 2.5 months after we began services in Alameda County, we were in shelter in place. So we lived the life of, trying to engage our residents in long-term care facilities, and that where our jurisdiction is skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, boarding care, some independent living housing. And as we were trying to adjust and get acclimated to living life in the pandemic, one of the things that we had to think about, we got so many calls from our residents talking about isolation, talking about not seeing their loved ones, being afraid. And so our role is to ensure that residents in long-term care are free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And one of the things that we advocated for to our state ombudsman is that if we're not in facilities, Zoom is just not the same thing for us. It was very difficult to assess. And some of the things that we saw when we did get permission to go in, I think it was later that year in August, I was one of the first to be able to go in, and we were in full PPE gear, whatever it took to be there for our residents. And it was alarming. One thing is, it's definitely telling of some of the things that happen in long-term care facilities, and not all bad. I do know, and I acknowledge this, that some are exhausted and weren't prepared to deal with the 3 years now almost that we've been in the pandemic. So what my team and myself do, we just don't respond to abuse and neglect and exploitation cases. I make sure that they're out doing general visits, being visible as much as possible, letting residents know who we are and what we do. As Marietta indicated, not many people know about Ombudsman services or APS, or even that what the DA's office even do, that there's even a section that deals with elder abuse. And so we partner with one another. And I just don't talk about our services, things that are appropriate to share from when we do meet with MDT, multidisciplinary team meeting, APS services, and some of the other ones, California Department of Public Health and Community Care Licensing, to keep our residents informed and empowered with knowledge. And so letting them know that we are here for them to keep them safe, and really promoting in those facilities quality of care and quality of life. Just because you're in a facility does not mean that is the end for you. So we heard our residents loud and clear wanting to see their loved ones. We saw the mental decline because of that, and really advocated of making sure visitations were back in place, but doing it appropriately and following CDC guidelines. And as Cheryl indicated, it was difficult, but I just want the city council to know, Madam Mayor, the residents of Union City, if you have loved ones, or if anyone in your family or friends and community find themselves in a situation where they have to be in long-term care, we are here. We are here to make sure that residents know their rights, and we're here to protect the rights of residents. So again, we want to just thank you for acknowledging and this proclamation, Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and the proclamation on behalf of Empowered Aging, my Executive Director, Nicole Howell, and Program Director, Susanna Meyer, and myself, Charmaine Brent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Charmaine. And I was just reflecting on how important this issue is, such that not only one of you thought it important to be here this evening, but three of you, so that the community can really understand what a team effort it is to make sure our elders are protected. So again, thank you so much for being here this evening. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anna, may we have 3B, please?
Proclamation in recognition of Student Voter Registration Drive held at James Logan High School.
Thank you. My honor this evening to be able to present this proclamation for the future voters of the United States. Whereas the High School Voter Registration Project is a nationwide effort to encourage young people, especially young minorities, to register to vote. And whereas research shows that it is possible to create long-term change by encouraging lifelong civic participation from young people. And whereas youth voter turnout for the 2020 election was 50%, one of the highest percentages ever. However, Americans under the age of 30 remain severely underrepresented in the electorate. And the disparities in youth voting grow even wider when looking at African Americans, Latinos, and those with no college experience. And whereas, to this end, the League of Women Voters of Fremont, Newark, and Union City held a voter registration drive at James Logan High School to engage and empower young people to participate in democracy and lessen the disparities among local youth. And whereas Julie Dunkel, founder of the Youth Voter Movement, initiated the drives with assistance provided by Seth Amon, senior member and lead league representative for James Logan High School. And whereas the following students participated and registered 910 voter-eligible junior and senior students who are now ready to participate in the November 22 midterm elections. And I have several names here. I'm going to read them. Any I mispronounce, I do apologize in advance. So we also have the grades listed here at the time this took place. So there's Reem Wagas, 9th grader, Awa Nagashabandi, a 9th grader. Then the 10th graders were Fatima Kawaja, Sabrina Chung, Sean Jane, Sarah Fayaz, Brizis Rubio, Abosede Legebede, Shana Louie. Then a couple of 11th graders as well was Minor Khan and Allison Kelly. So, therefore, the City Council of the City of Union City does hereby recognize and commend the aforementioned students and the League of Women Voters of Fremont, Newark, and Union City for their work towards empowering the young people of our community to stand up and make the most of their right to vote. Let's give them a round of applause for all their hard work.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and respected City Council members. Thank you very much for this proclamation. It was an honor to be a catalyst in helping my peers vote. We understand that voting is critical to our democracy, and we were very excited to be a part of this process. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. That was short and sweet, and thank you for all your hard work. Oh, and if you would, go ahead and press the button on the speaker there. That will turn the mic off. There you go. Thank you. There.
Madam Mayor, can I just say something real quick about this?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I actually had the honor of volunteering for this event. Thank you, Shamsa, for inviting me. It's always a great pleasure to go back to my old high school. And these kids were enthusiastic. I think they did 5 periods of back-to-back, and I think they took one little break and back again. Kathy Callie was there, too. It was fun, and the kids were excited. They learned a lot. So I even got to see one of my old teachers. I didn't think there were any left still working there at Logan, but it was very nice, and keep up the good work. It was nice to see everybody there. Thank you. You guys did a great job.
Thank you for those comments, Vice Mayor. And now we're going to move on to 3C, please.
Proclamation recognizing May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
For the third item this evening, accepting at the end of the proclamation will be John Shea, who is the founder and past president of the Asian American Federation of California. Whereas in 1992, Congress established May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which was renamed in 2009 as Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, AAPI. And the month of May was chosen for AAPI Heritage Month to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese people to the United States on May 7, 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869, in which the majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. And whereas Asian Americans are the fastest growing population in the nation, nationwide, the community saw 35% growth, and California's Asian population surged 25% over the last 10 years. And whereas data from the 2020 census states Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders make up 56.6% of Union City's total population, approximately 39,700 residents. And whereas AAPI communities are immensely diverse, consisting of multiple ethnicities, hundreds of languages and dialects, wide-ranging socioeconomic characteristics, and distinct immigration patterns. And whereas AAPI persons living in Union City are a vital and valued part of our community, making significant contributions to academia, business, medicine, law, technology, government, science, and social justice, and making our city a better place to live. And whereas, despite the strange zone and successes achieved, We have seen a staggering rise in bullying, discrimination, and hate crimes against the AAPI community during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas during this month, we should recommit ourselves to promoting equity and acceptance for the AAPI community, stand up against discrimination and hatred, and ensure that our city is a welcoming and inclusive place for all. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Union City does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Asian American and Pacific Island Heritage Month throughout the City of Union City, and urges all Union City residents to recognize and celebrate the many significant cultural, historical, and economic contributions Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have made to Union City and the nation.
Mayor and council member, good evening. This is John Shea. I'm so delighted to come back here. Every time I come to the City Hall, I feel like a return home. And as you can recall, that the Asian American Heritage Festival has been held in the Bay Area over the past 26 years. And out of them, 20 festival is held in this city. So we are so proud of that, feel like at home. And as I can record, that the Asian American Heritage Month actually had passed about 6 transactions. And back into 1977, and at the time, the Congressman Frank Holden and also Norman Mineta, they proposed the Asian Pacific Week to the Congress. And then in 1978, and it's been adopted, and at the time it's been passed, it's been recognized. But back into the 1990, that's the first time the Congress, they pass it and extend the Asian Pacific Heritage Week into Heritage Month. That's in 1990. In 1991, I was so honored to be invited to the White House, and I had observed the signature by the President, George H.W. Bush. And that's the first time. So in the history record, that's according to the public law 101-283, I believe that's correct. That's a public law that's only designated that the 1990 and 91 and 92, it's this 2 years. But after that, because you had to pass by the Congress every year, so this in the 1992. That's most of the document now says the 1992. But remember, the different public law 101 and has the designated 1991 and 1992. But the public law 102-450, that's the law that said from now on, every year, you don't need to pass a law again. So they recognize the Asian Pacific Heritage, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. So that's from the, but back until the 2009, President Obama, he passed it, he changed it to the Asian American and Pacific Island. That's what we have here. But the last change actually was last year, 2021. Now the name is totally changed. It's the Asian American Native Hawaiian Native Hawaiian and Pacific Island. So the name is changed. It's AA and NH and then PI, Heritage Month. So this is a really transaction. But as you know, that our local Asian festival is, it's been conducted by the community member, and we had the representative from the Thai community. I think Lee is here. Lee is here. And also from Japan community, from Philippine community, from Indian community, Vietnam, so all over. So this is, we always believe that the unity in diversity. So there are three characters we always remember. INC for the festival. I means the identity, while everyone come to this country to identify themselves as the ethnic group. But after they identify themselves, and they like to network to each other for the social networking. C, that means that while they work together, they can accomplish something, they can create something, they can cooperate each other. So I do remember back in 1992, at that time, the Los Angeles has a riot, and Ronnie, he said, can we get along? So this almost 30 years ago. Now we see the hate crime is everywhere, but we should remember from the past history, we learned a lot. And I do believe that the Tata said, if you want to go far faster, go alone by yourself. But if you want to go afar, okay, go together. So I think Union City, we all here to work together, and we are rich in our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John. That's well said, and how exciting it must have been for you to personally be there as part of the history when that document was signed in '91. So, and your comments makes me think of the slogan we came up with for our All-America City competition that's proudly displayed. Okay, perfect. Well, turn around and show the audience. He brought the proclamation with him from 1991. There you go. And that fits nicely with our city slogan, many hands, one heart. So that being said, thank you, John. And we are now going to move on to 3D, please.
Presentation on Southern Alameda County Integrated Rail, SoCo Rail, Study Update, Union City Rail Station, and Layover Facility.
Thank you, and if everybody would turn their attention to the screens, our presenter, Dan Levitt, will be one of our Zoom participants, and after Dan, I'll turn it over to Mary Lou, our Public Works Director, for additional updates and comments. So take it away, Dan.
Great. Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I appreciate this opportunity to give you an update. I am Dan Levitt, Manager of Regional Initiatives for the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. We are the owner-operator of the ACE Rail Service. If you could go to the next slide. We are a partner agency with the effort that MTC is leading, the Southern Alameda County Integrated Rail Analysis, which we refer to as the SoCo study. Phase 1 of this study has been complete and was presented to you last year. The focus of the SoCo study is really identifying and moving forward with a rail-to-rail hub station in the Tri-City area. And the Phase 1 conclusions came to the decision that the Union City BART and an ACE to BART connection was the midterm preferred for a rail-to-rail connection in the Tri-City area. And the Phase 1 report is on the MTC website. It was posted towards the end of last year. Phase 2 is now well underway. And I'm going to go over a little bit of the layover facility options analysis that was completed recently, and also talk to you about some of the detailed planning that's underway. but we are targeting the completion of phase 2 for the end of this year. It is this phase 2 analysis is about a $2 million study. Again, this is being led by MTC. After we're completed with this, the next step in the project development, we believe, will be the environmental clearance phase that we're looking forward to hopefully getting started with you sometime next year. Next slide. On the left, you see the ACE route shown in purple. Coming into the Tri-City area, you use the UP corridor, and the dashed line shows our potential link to Union City using the Oakland Industrial Line that UP owns. On the right side shows the location of in the sort of pinkish peach sort of color of the layover facility, layover tracks that we are looking to implement the route just south of the station. This is one that we found to be the preferred location of the locations that were looked at. If you go to the next slide. We did analyze in this study 4 different locations, 2 of them in Union City, the location that's just south of the station. In addition, we looked at the US Pipe location to the north, and then in the south, in Fremont, we looked at a Shin Street location, and then we also looked at a location in Newark by Willow Street. We analyzed each location, looking at project complexity, land use compatibility, environmental considerations, and operational feasibility. Go to the next slide. This table just summarizes the findings of that work, looking at the various labor facilities, 1 being good, 5 being the worst, and really concluding that the Union City BART location just south of where the station would be the superior location, having the best operational feasibility, environmental constraints, and the least amount of complexity. The bottom line is that with this site located really just right next to the platform, it reduces the impacts on the host railroad. It also reduces environmental impacts as well. Next slide. This figure shows what we envision the ACE service to look like within the next 10 years. Each one of the lines you see there is representing a round trip. Today, we have 4 round trips with ACE service between Stockton and San Jose. In the near term, we're looking to add 1 additional round trip between the Valley and San Jose. And then at that point, we will be constrained to adding additional round trips to San Jose because of constraints through the Alvisa wetlands between Fremont and San Jose. And this is where a Union City connection becomes very important to being able to add additional service from the Valley and in Sacramento to Union City, and to make that connection with BART. In the midterm, and then for the SoCo phase 2 study, we are looking at 3 additional round trips within the next 5 to 10 years. This would not be the ultimate. We would, in the future beyond that, we would certainly believe that more round trips would happen in the future, but this is what we believe is a reasonable amount of service to be expected to be able to implement within the next 5 to 10 years. This would be a doubling of the number of ACE trains that serve the Bay Area. In addition, with our ACE service, we do have expansion underway to expand ACE service to Sacramento and to extend ACE service down to Merced. And so we are looking to have these Union City trains not just connect to Stockton, but also connect to Sacramento and to a high-speed rail connection at Merced, which is the terminus point for their initial operating section between Merced and Bakersfield. Go to the next slide. Did want to just highlight the sort of the differences and the complementary nature between our project, ACE expansion, and the Valley Link project, which is shown in blue. We both utilize the Altamont corridor, but we believe these are very complementary services. We are being led by different agencies. The Valley Link service is led by the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority, but my agency is one of the member agencies for that agency. And we have participated in the planning since the inception of Valley Link and supported the Valley Link effort. Again, viewing it very complementary to ACE. ACE market in the Bay Area is primarily focused on the South Bay, the Silicon Valley travel, whereas the Valley Link service is really looking more towards the connection, not just the Tri-Valley area, but also the BART connection at Dublin, Pleasanton, and connecting to Oakland and San Francisco markets, which the ACE service does not serve well. Even with the connection to Union City and BART, our service with the Union City connection is really more focused on the South Bay as opposed to Oakland and San Francisco. In addition, Valley Link is going to be a very frequent service, having BART type frequencies because it will be separated from freight in its entirety. And it will connect with ACE at the North Lathrop station in the Valley. We, on the other hand, are still going to be running on UP, and so we're constrained to the number of trains that we can offer. So Valley Link will be a very frequent service that operates at shorter distances. ACE is going to extend to much longer distances to Sacramento and Merced that will feed into the Valley Link service. And so these two services will work very well together. And again, we believe they're very complementary. Next slide. This just shows a little more detail of the station with the layover site that is located to the south of the station. We are planning for 2 layover tracks, and we will be doing additional engineering as part of this phase 2. But this just kind of gives you an idea of one of the conceptual engineering concepts that we have. We do have another concept as well for where the platform would be, which is shown in the green. But this, you can see that this the 2 tracks coming in really have no connection with the existing UP main line. So we're able to come into the station, and when we have our trains go to the layover facility, they do not go back onto the UP main line, which is a real big plus for this location. Next slide. And then in terms of the other work that we're doing, but before the end of the year, we are continuing to work on operations planning, ridership analysis. We will do ridership forecast based on the operational plan I showed you earlier with the 3 round trips. Connectivity planning, looking at how a service connects and complements other things that are going on at the station, including trans-oriented development, express bus type service between Union City and across the Dumbarton Bridge, the Quarry Lakes project, Parkway project, and synergy between our efforts and that project. We'll be looking at that, equity analysis, doing more detailed engineering, cost estimations, and then doing a funding plan and implementation plan for moving this project forward. Again, as I mentioned before, the next step is after we're completed with this at the end of the year would be to do the environmental clearance. And then I believe that's my last slide. Next slide just gives my contact information and open up to any questions that you might have.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Yeah, and I think what I'm going to do is see if the council members do have questions or comments before we turn it over to Mary Lou for a more local perspective, because certainly, Dan, you were mentioning this in how Union City relates on the regional scheme of things. So I might as well start down with you, Vice Mayor Patino. Do you have any questions or comments for Dan?
Keep forgetting to hit the button there. No, it's very interesting. I was trying to get a better look from the online version here, but no, I can't wait to hear more.
Okay, thank you so much. And Councilmember Gakoskas?
Not being too familiar with transportation business, I just want to ask for more to understand better, and also for our residents to understand better this project. So how will the area of BART becoming the transportation hub help Union City and the activities that will happen in the BART station, Union City BART? And I know this is a very good project and it will help the community, but at the same time, if I want more explanation on how that works.
Okay, and Mary Lou, based on her question in reference to Union City BART, do you think that's more of a question for you than Dan when we get to you?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we'll hold that question for Mary Lou then, because I think that's what I heard you saying. Isn't that correct? Yeah. More of the BART connection and what have you? Okay.
For our residents to understand better. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
We'll come back to that then. Councilmember Singh, any questions or comments for Dan?
Sure. I would like to say that it would be really a benefit to all the Valley workers that come into Union City. I see my neighbor come from all the way from Manteca. They're coming from Modesto, even they're coming from all the way Fresno. They're making a trip to Emerald Packaging and the tortilla factory. They're coming all around that area. That would be really beneficial to all the workers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Duncan?
I don't have any questions, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Dan for giving us this update. This project is so complicated that if you don't sit on one of the transportation commissions, it's a little challenging to follow it, but it's exciting and it looks like the future will certainly be better as a result of it. I would just recommend that you might want to update us more often so that we can, those of us that aren't involved in transportation, can kind of track with what's going on. It's very technical, but it looks very exciting. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Duncan. Dan, can you please put the slide back up that was showing Valley Link and ACE?
Sure.
And while you're doing that, I'll mention, I don't know about the other council members or the audience, but for me, the sound from your presentation, while it started out wonderful, was a little bit choppy. So I was having that issue. But as Councilmember Duncan just mentioned, I am the council member that sits on the transportation boards, ACTC and MTC, so certainly I need to be paying close attention to this and be an advocate to make sure we can continue this in this direction to bring this into Union City. But that being said, now that I've learned more about Valley Link in a meeting I had with them last week, even more curious or a lot more questions, and I won't go into all of them this evening, but I know that you did say in the presentation that certainly Valley Link, their audience is more folks headed towards North County, and ACE would be the South County and Santa Clara County as they continue on. But that being said, as far as the connectivity of the two of them, it would be the Lathrop station where you would share a common platform, is that correct?
That is correct. And potentially additional stations too. We are looking at potentially sharing track from North Lathrop all the way to Livermore. So if that were the case, we would share other stations too. But definitely the North Lathrop one is one where that's a really important connection, so that if you were coming up from a high-speed rail line ride and taking our ACE train, and you want to go to Oakland or San Francisco, you could make the direct connection at the North Lathrop and transfer over to Valley Link.
Okay, thank you. And you did mention, of course, you'd be running on UP tracks. So
yes,
do we have the full or partial I cannot say the word how do you say that word?
Cooperation.
Cooperation, that's how you say it. I am having trouble tonight. But in any case, UP has been a challenge to work with. So how is that conversation going?
Well, we've been partners with UP. We've run on UP track for more than 2 decades. And in addition, we're working on a massive expansion program with UP, both, and this program is underway, where we're looking to start construction next year to extend ACE to Sacramento and to extend ACE down initially to Ceres, but ultimately down to Merced. And so all of this has been done with the cooperation of UP. We could not have gotten funding to move forward with this without UP's support. We will continue to work with UP on this piece. We do need to get further into the planning on this. And so the work that we're doing over the course of this phase is very important, but we will absolutely be working with UP through this. And they are aware of this effort underway. And so we will continue to work with them, but they have supported the efforts that we have made to expand ACE service.
And then my final question is in terms of funding, because as you say, you're still working through several phases here. So, and you did mention the environmental documents. So are you going to be preparing those documents so they would be cleared by Nepa as well as Sequa?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be, in this current climate, getting both Nepa and Sequa is important. We probably would do the Sequa first. We can do Sequa quicker. And then with the NEPA, typically, it's something that we work on as we're doing our applications for NEPA grants. And so if we get awarded the grants, then we would do the NEPA. But certainly it can be, the work can be done concurrently, but we found in our efforts that getting the Sequa done first is very key.
Okay, thank you. And what I would say as well is, I think it was not mentioned here, but in a prior meeting that at ACTC, I'm sorry, using acronyms, let me say what they are for the folks that aren't familiar. The Alameda County Transportation Commission, we really haven't talked much about ACE. So as this moves forward, please do continue to provide me with information so I can bring it up at every opportunity I can to make sure it's in front and getting the funding where we possibly can.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to come and give you updates as we progress. I mean, it's going to move fast. This year's going to go by. I can't believe it's already May. It's going to go by really, really quick, but we'll have a lot of extra analysis to be able to share with you over the next several months. And so I'd be happy to come back and present whenever it's convenient and keep you informed. This is I did want to just note too, this is a very important project to my agency. We view this as our future for more service into the Bay Area. So we look forward, we appreciate your support, look forward to working with you.
Oh, certainly. And then I did think of the last question, and I'm not even sure there's an answer yet because you're still doing these phases, but getting to Councilmember Gacosa's question about Union City and folks being able to ride here, what would be the best case scenario? What year would we possibly be having service into Union City on a continuous basis? Because I know we currently, if all things were right, could do weekend service.
Yes, we are planning weekend service. And again, we've talked about having this done within 10 years. We talk about midterm projects. It's a 5 to 10 year sort of period, and we're being conservative by having, saying this would be in by 10 years. Our hope would be that we'd have at least some of the service in prior to that. So somewhere between around 8 years is probably the quickest we could get something in, but it really depends upon funding and getting the resources needed to be able to move forward with the program. But we have this, with this effort, we've been talking about it being implemented within the next 8 to 10 years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. You got that, Pat? Mark it on your calendar. Okay, thank you so much, Dan. And now, Mary Lou, let's go ahead and go over to you.
So before I start my presentation, can you kindly go back one more slide? Here is, I would like to answer your question. It's difficult to hear Dan, he's a little ruffled. So this is what we call the 2030 vision for ACE. So as you see there are 2 green lines. One green line originates as far north as Natomas, goes through Stockton, comes in Union City BART. That's an AM train to bring people from the Central Valley, Sacramento area to connect directly to to BART, to bring in our employees that live in the Central Valley. The other green line you see there comes all the way from Merced up through Lathrop area and then connects to ACE. Those 2 green lines are commuter trains. They only operate AM in the morning and they lay over and they take the same people home in the PM. Similar to what happens at the Diridon station today. ACE has 4 trains that come in from the Central Valley, connects to San Jose. Those same 4 trains lay over, they get cleaned, and then they depart in the evening. It's about a 2-hour train ride, or sometimes hour and 45 minutes. To Diridon, this would be much shorter since we're closer. So that's Monday through Friday, commuter trains. The orange line is a 7 days a week train that would originate in Union City. It would take people from the Bay Area down to the Central Valley. ACE has found that there was a ridership and demand in the past 2 years during COVID, who people simply want to go down to the LA area, out of the Bay Area. There is a demand for a daily train to make that connection. The importance of the connection in Merced
is where the early phases of high-speed rail will connect. So eventually, it will be connecting BART to high-speed rail through Union City BART. So I hope that answers your question in terms of near term. I would say the next, like Dan said, in the next 10 years, what we call midterm. So with that, any questions?
It sounds like Councilmember Duncan has a question.
I don't really have a question, but it would be great to have a copy of this slide. It's complicated and it's far away and it's not clear.
Okay.
So is there a way that you could provide the council with a picture of this slide particularly? It sounds like this would really be helpful to be able to study and up close.
Yes, yes, we can.
Good enough, thank you. And Councilmember Singh?
Yeah, I just want to ask, maybe it's too early to ask about the time. You say it leaves in the evening. So when you say evening, is it 4 o'clock, 5, 6?
That would be a question for Dan. It really depends on how they coordinate with Union Pacific Railroad on the operations and when they can, what I would say, see a slot or make time,
Right.
because again, they share with freight. Go ahead, Dan.
We will have that information as we get a little further in this year. We're still working on really honing down exactly the sort of the operational plan, and we do need to work with UP on that in terms of which slots. So we should be able to have that information to you in a few months.
Thank you, Dan.
That's a really good question, though, because people have different work schedules, so you got to try and
Exactly, yeah.
accommodate the most. So, yeah. And Councilmember Gakostas?
Just want to ask, how does this compare with the El Cerrito BART station, which is also called Transportation Hub?
That I don't know the details of El Cerrito BART station, but I will tell you what's happening at Union City BART station. Opportunity for ACE connection. We currently support AC Transit. We have Dunbarton Express and Union City Transit that all feed into our BART station that goes north all the way to Richmond and to San Francisco, and then now goes all the way down south to the Berryessa BART station.
Okay, that helps.
And Dunbarton Express, of course, that goes across the peninsula, operated by AC Transit.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Mayor Patino, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mary Lou, thank you for the local breakdown, and Dan, thank you for the more regional perspective to, again, show everybody how complicated this is. And it seems like in Union City, especially around our station district, all the projects are complex. But that's okay, because we have the best staff in the world to make sure those complex projects happen.
So, Mayor, I'm ready to give the local perspective.
Oh,
so
I thought that was it.
So you can understand what's going on.
Okay, please do that.
Next slide, please. This is an update of our intermodal station project and the station area. So as you know, MTC presented about 10 months ago on the Southern Alameda Integrated Rail Study. And again, to remind the council that Union City environmentally cleared back in 2006 an intermodal rail station at our BART station with connection to ACE, and Dan was part of that team, Dumbarton Rail, and Cap Corridor. And in 2022, so 10 months later, you've heard from Dan, and he was happy to say that Union City BART station was selected the preferred alternative because of the investment and the long-term planning that we had at this station. I also want to update you on our BART Phase 2A, the at-grade crossing, Corey Lakes Parkway, and of course the summary on the ACE passenger rail station. Next slide, please. Again, for over 20 years, we've invested about over $160 million of local, regional, state, and federal funds. We have long-term partners, MTC, BART, AC Transit, and other transit agencies, along with our partners, our local cities, Fremont, Hayward, and of course, Newark. Next slide, please. As you know, BART Phase 2A was completed at the end of 2020, actually, end of 2021, I'm sorry, at the end of 2021. The UP installed the at-grade crossing concrete tracks in preparation for the at-grade crossing. And so that is now completed in 2021. Next slide, please. When ACE connects to Union City BART, this will be the only location in the Bay Area where ACE and BART will be connected. Just a 5-minute walk from ACE to BART, a 5-minute walk from BART ACE to AC Transit, Dunbar Express, and Union City Transit. Next slide, please. The at-grade crossing, we're currently completing, inputting Union Pacific comments. We hope to complete the design by the end of summer and then go out to bid in 2022, and then hopefully open the at-grade crossing late 2022, early 2023. And I just want to remind council, these at-grade crossing are very complex. It's a complex approval process for Union Pacific. We have to close one of our existing crossings just to get a new at-grade crossing, and it's about an 8-year process. Next slide, please. So we see an opportunity, a partnership with ACE and Union City as we integrate the Quarry Lakes Parkway and the ACE Station project. The ACE Station, as you see this darker circle, is they will be coordinating, negotiating, and working with Union Pacific Railroad as part of the development of the track improvements, the layover area, and the station. They are experts or experienced with negotiating and working with Union Pacific Railroad. At the same time, we have to build a grade separation underneath the UP tracks, both the Niles and the Oakland. In doing so, we are required to do a shoe fly, what we call a temporary detour track. So operating in that right of way, we need to negotiate and secure a permit for both grade separations. Next slide, please. Again, we see opportunity for ACE and Union City to coordinate our two projects. There's an opportunity, like I said, coordinate, collaborate, and find cost savings. ACE and us can partner as we negotiate and expedite the permits required for the grade separations. Both our projects are working within the Oakland subdivision right-of-way. A temporary railroad shoe fly is needed so the train can operate while we build the new bridge. There's opportunity to reuse that track and maybe put it in and use it for the future ACE station or the Layover facility. There's opportunity that we can, as part of our project, install empty conduit for what we call positive train control for what the ACE service will need. And then finally, Quarry Lakes Parkway will create excess dirt. There's opportunity that we can use that dirt to do some grading work within the UP right-of-way. And then next slide, please. So again, we continue planning and investing. Next steps is continue to coordinate with ACE on the Union City ACE Station project in their environmental phase. And then when we proceed with the Quarry Lakes Parkway phases 3 and 4, we can coordinate our grade separation projects with them. Complete the BART entrance at the at-grade crossing in later 2022 or and early 2023. Prepare an RFP for Quarry Lakes Parkway phases 3 and 4 so we can get an expert who knows grade separation on our design team to coordinate with the ACE team. And then as part of that, evaluate integrating the Quarry Lakes Parkway grade separations with the ACE track improvements for potential cost savings. So with that, any questions you may have?
Great presentation, again, showing the complexity of everything, but Councilmember Duncan.
Thanks, Mary Lou. That really helped kind of clarify how the pieces connect. The one thing I didn't quite understand, you said we'd have to close one of our ad grade stations to accommodate this. Do we know which crossing we'd have to close?
Yeah, we will have to close the existing I Street crossing. I Street. As part of the at-grade crossing, to open the at-grade crossing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And Councilmember Singh?
I just want to say thank you, Mary Lou. Appreciate it.
A lot of information. Councilmember Gakoskas?
It becomes more complicated, but thank you so much for the I know you really work hard on this one, Mayor Lou, and also Mayor for being a member of the ACTC a long time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Patino.
Yeah, I believe a couple months ago, we had discussed the I Street closure. When I was at the National League of Cities, they have a program. I can't remember. Was it the crossing termination program? Or it's a new pot of money for exactly issues like this. And I actually went and met with people with the Department of Transportation, and they said that the I Street that could potentially be a project on its own because it totally qualified under these circumstances. But I don't know if I understood correctly earlier when we were talking. You said that when the trains come in, they'll stay and wait until the afternoon commute. Where would they stay? Because wouldn't Union Pacific still need the line to get through?
There is Dan had it in his details. There are like what we call layover facilities. So there'll be the actual main line where freight could continue. There's these spurs that come out. There's like, she talked about 2 or 3 spurs that come around. They will lay over in those areas. So they will be outside of the operating track.
Okay, yeah, because I just didn't see them in any of the drawings or renderings. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mary Lou and I talk quite often about this, and Mary Lou really does have her work cut out for her. It's not just this, but if you think about everything she's doing around there with Quarry Lakes Parkway and just so much with ACTC, so just thank you, because Union City is the beneficiary of some great stuff when it's finally finished, definitely so. So, okay, let me check, is there anybody in the audience on this, since it was a presentation, that would like to comment? Okay, I don't see anybody in the audience on this item. So next up is item 4, which is oral communications. This is the part of the agenda that allows speakers to comment on any item that is not on the agenda this evening. And that would be people at home. I do see there's one hand up there, and I do have a couple of speaker cards already. Let me see, that's on the other item. So Anna, why don't we go ahead and start with the Zoom speaker, and I can't see that far for the name, Manal Shaif, I think. Thank you, it's all a blur. So a name and address for the record, please, and you've got 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Manal Shafi. I'm proud to serve as a Community and Government Relations Coordinator at Bloom Energy, a clean, resilient energy company founded right here in Silicon Valley, with nearly 800 local employees and currently hiring more than 300 additional advanced manufacturing careers. Over the past 2 years, we have learned more than ever the vital role of our frontline hospital and healthcare workers, all putting our health before their own throughout the COVID-19 crisis. In recognition of their selfless work, Bloom Energy hosted the inaugural Stars and Strides community run last year and raised more than $250,000 to benefit the Valley Medical Center Foundation. I'm here tonight to invite you to come and build on our success on Saturday morning, July 2nd, for a second annual Stars and Strides community run to support and celebrate our frontline hospital workers and the patients they serve. Our ambitious goal for the second annual Stars and Strides community run will be much more attainable with your help and participation. First, our financial goal is to raise and donate $350,000 to the Valley Medical Center Foundation as they support 3 county hospitals, 14 healthcare clinics, which collectively provide healthcare services to more than 1 million of our neighbors annually, 85% of whom are low-income members of our community. Second, our participation goal is for 2,500 paying participants in the Armature Systems 10K run, the Silicon Valley Bank 5K run or walk, or the HP Inc. Kids Fun Run. Third, our volunteer goal is 400 caring volunteers pre-race or on race day to further ensure our participants have a fun, safe, and healthy experience. Our Bloom Energy Stars and Strides community run will start and finish at Discovery Meadow in downtown San Jose and I'm inviting you to join us. If you are unable to attend physically, you can still participate in our Bank of America Step Up in Spirit virtual run or walk. Tonight, we have 3 requests. First, please register yourself and your family. Registration is easy at starsandstridesrun.com. For elected leaders, please sign up under the California Water Service Elected Official 5K Challenge. Second, please reach out to your own database of community members. We have a sample text you can consider using to make it easy. Third, we would be honored to work with your professional staff to be included in any online communications between now and Race Day. Over the past 2 years, we've realized how critical healthcare workers are to our communities. We now have the opportunity to celebrate and support them on July 2nd. Please join us and spread the word throughout your communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manal. And again, getting used to this, I'm realizing that I can see your name in larger print off to the right. So I'll pay attention to that. But thank you to you and Bloom Energy for supporting our healthcare workers. These last 3 years, their life has been insane. And the 3 asks that you have, certainly I think you can connect with somebody at our staff level, and maybe we can get that out on social media in Union City to let folks know about this Stars and Stripe event. So thank you for being here. I don't see any other hands up on Zoom. So in the audience, I do have 1 speaker card, Dave Bahadia. Good to see you, Dave. Come on up, and you've got 3 minutes. You're listed here under general public comment. Dave.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm Dave Bahatia, living at 24 Union Square, Avalon. I want to speak regarding affordable housing. I've been living at Avalon for the last 5 years. Every year my lease was renewed. But due to suffering from COVID last year, I could not submit application for renewal in their timeline. So last year in October, they raised my rent from $1,250 to $2,700, more than double what they call, in a market rent. I requested several times in email that let me submit my application for renewal online because they will never accept in hard copies, but it was disagreed due to their policy. I request you to intervene in this matter since affordable housing is under city audit and policies. I'm a senior citizen living in Union City for the last 40 years. So I want to request before June 30, which is a deadline, as they will give me eviction notice. After that, make me homeless and move out of Avalon. Okay, well, I want to move to affordable housing planning in the city. I feel Union City need to pay more attention to affordable housing. As you know, homeless population is increasing in every city. Hence, sooner the better. In last 2 years, city of Hayward, Fremont, and New York have picked up the pace in getting affordable housing projects built, and some are already under construction. But unfortunately, Union City is lagging behind. I'm sorry to say that, but it's the fact. I know city has programs and need to pay, city need to put more efforts to make affordable housing available. As you know, it's a very kind of a critical subject. If you realize we have minimum affordable housing apartments available for low-income housing, and that is not a good thing for the reputation of Union City and for homeless people. So I will really request mayor and council and staff to pay attention, in kind of accelerating affordable housing projects.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Dave, for being here this evening. I don't have anybody else with speaker cards, but as far as your issue with Avalon, I don't know if you've reached out to our housing coordinator, Francisco Gomez. So if not, certainly do contact him so he can see what assistance he might be able to give you.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. And as to the issue of homelessness and affordable housing, we are working diligently on that. It just doesn't appear so to the general public because it is such an area that is very complex. And so, in any case, I'll be mentioning more about that at the end of the meeting under good of the order. So, thank you, Dave, for being here this evening. Okay, that is it for Section 4, Oral Communications. We're moving on to Section 5, which is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. If a discussion is required on a specific item, I'll remove it from the consent calendar and consider it separately. Vice Mayor Patino, do you have anything you'd like to remove from consent this evening?
No, I do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Dacoscos?
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Councilmember Singh?
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilmember Duncan?
Nothing, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to remove anything from consent? I don't see anybody in front of me, and I don't see Anna. Is there any hands raised? Nope, no attendee with a hand raised. So, okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion for adoption of the consent calendar, please.
Make that motion, Mayor. Make a motion to approve consent calendar 5A to 5F.
And
Second.
okay, the motion is made by Councilmember Dacoscos, and the second is made by Councilmember Singh. Anna, may we have our roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Dacoscos?
Aye.
Councilmember Singh?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Mayor Dutra-Vinci?
Aye, that consent calendar passes unanimously. Section 6 is public hearings. We have none this evening. Section 7 is city manager reports. Anna, may we have 7A, please?
Adopt two resolutions. One, approving the annual engineer's report for the citywide landscape and lighting district number 3. And 2, declaring the intent to renew the LAD number 3 and set a public hearing date.
And staff report, please.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'll be presenting this today. Next slide, please. The landscape and lighting district process is a 3-step process. Back in April 12, 2022, our City Council meeting, we initiated the proceedings to levy and collect assessments for landscape and lighting district number 3 for fiscal year 22-23. We're at step 2 today, which is approve engineer's report, declare intent to levy and collect assessment, and set June 28, 2022 as a date for the public hearing for landscape and lighting district number 3 for fiscal year 22 and 23. Next slide, please. This is the budget that's identified in the engineer's report. I know it's very difficult to see, so we can summarize on the next slide, please. So the total cost for the landscape and lighting district is about $4.6 million. Once we collect the assessments from the landscape and lighting district, it contributes $2.6 million to our district. And then we have identified a shortfall of $1.9 million that we contribute to make our landscape and lighting district whole. Next slide, please. So staff recommends that the City Council, pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting District Act of 1972, adopt a resolution to approve the annual engineer's report for the Landscape and Lighting District number 3 for fiscal year 22 and 23, declare its intention to levy and collect assessments for Landscape and Lighting District number 3 for fiscal year 22 to 23, and then finally set June 28, 2022, the City Council meeting as a date for the public hearing for the Landscape and Lighting District number 3 for fiscal year 22 and 23. Questions?
Let's find out. Councilmember Duncan, do you have any questions or comments for Mary Lou this evening?
No, I don't have any questions, Mary Liz. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Singh?
I don't have any question, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Dacuscos?
No question, Mayor.
All righty, and Vice Mayor Patino?
I have no questions other than one, just procedural one. Do we have to vote on this all at once, or do we have to vote each time? There's three different things. I'm just trying to.
It's one resolution.
Okay. That's all I need.
Okay, good enough. Is there anybody in the audience for Lighting and Landscape District? Seeing none in front of me. Anna, do we have any hand up over there? We do not. Okay, then this is a pretty short item. At this point, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for that resolution. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, make the motion to approve the annual engineer's report for landscaping and lighting district number 3 for fiscal year 2022-2023. Second, declare its intention to levy and collect assessments for landscape and lighting district number 3 for fiscal year 2022-2023. 3, set June 28, 2022 council meeting as the date for the public hearing for LLAD number 3 for fiscal year 2022-2023.
And I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, the motion was made by Vice Mayor Patino, and the second goes to Councilmember Duncan. Anna, may we have our roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Duncan?
Aye.
Councilmember Dacuscos? Councilmember Singh?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Mayor Dutra-Vinacci?
Aye. It just occurred to me to mention the reason we're doing a roll call vote instead of pressing our buttons for those that haven't tuned in for a while is because we do have the viewing audience at home and they might not be able to see the buttons and how people are voting, so we're just doing it verbally. So that being said, may we move on to 7B, please?
Provide direction regarding further staff and consultant informational efforts regarding a proposed ballot measure for voter consideration of the extension of the existing sales tax and for further direction related to the proposed ballot measure for voter consideration of the extension of existing sales tax extension.
And may we have our staff report, please, Joan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. To start off with a little bit of background, in October of 2021, the council adopted a revised strategic plan, and I took a moment to just review the plan, as I do from time to time, but in preparation for this evening. And I noted that one of the values of the strategic plan is to plan for the long term in all that we do to ensure financial, environmental, and community well-being. And this really rung true this evening with the presentation on ACE that has its roots deep in the history of the visioning of the Station District going back 20 years, and it's now coming to fruition. That's just one example of many of the long-range planning efforts the city has made over the years. This led to a goal, our primary goal in the strategic plan, of fiscal stability and sustainability. And the goal, more specifically, is to foster fiscal health through a disciplined long-range planning, cost control, heightened efficiency, and increased revenue and cost recovery. One of those strategies to address this goal was to study and prepare the placement of a revenue measure on the November 2022 election that addresses the expiration of the 1.5 cent sales tax, or we need to prepare to make those cuts to our services. Next slide, please. On January 11th, the City Council did adopt a resolution to authorize an agreement with consultants to take a look at the feasibility of revenue measures, or measures actually at that time. The agreement was to complete a community survey and implement an informational outreach plan of possible ballot measures, and also to prepare materials and work with the city attorney on those measures. On January 25th, the council adopted another resolution authorizing the mayor to appoint a subcommittee to take a look at these matters in detail. And there were two specific measures that were being considered. One was the 0.5 cent sales tax extension, and the other was a business license tax increase, which was also linked to the strategic plan. Both of these analyses require, ultimately, voter approval. And so on February 22nd, after reviewing quite a bit of data, the ad hoc subcommittee returned with their findings and had recommended that we proceed with the half-cent sales tax, but continue studying the business license tax because of its complexity and wanting to have a clear understanding of how we would proceed with the measure to the voters with the appropriate time and research that was truly needed. Next, please. So on April 26th, just our last meeting, the council reviewed the community survey that was really worked through by the ad hoc subcommittee, and these were the results of extending the 1/2 cent sales tax. After being asked both very positive questions and negative questions about the 1/2 cent sales tax, the survey concluded that 64.1% supported the extension of the sales tax. And this was really rooted in the support for public safety, street repairs, and keeping our streets in good condition, senior and youth programs, parks, and general government services. The recommendation for the extension was initially through the community survey until ended by voters. That was the timeline that was identified. However, it was also pulled at a shorter timeline of 12 years, which does complete our 10-year budget horizon that we now are very committed to and use as a guiding force in all the budget planning that we do. So they looked at both, not only the planning horizon, but also until ended by voters. At that meeting, we discussed that the ballot measure would require a 4/5 support. We need essentially 4 council members to support the ballot measure to place it on the ballot for voter consideration. There was really no consensus on the next steps on how to move forward, so the mayor asked that it be agendized again for further consideration and possibly discuss ending the contract or stopping the process because we did not have a clear path forward. Next, please. Since that time, staff's done a little bit more work to try and provide more information for the council in their deliberation about how to proceed with the 1/2 cent sales tax. And we put together a chart which identifies some of those strategic either expiration of revenue measures or the retirement of bonds that would have a very positive effect on our general fund. Obviously, if we take no action on the 1/2 cent sales tax, by 2025, we will see a drop of about $7.5 million to our general fund, and this is based on an HDL, their most recent retail sales tax analysis that we received just about 10 days ago. So it was after the last council meeting, but before this one, so we're able to plug it in. But in 2027, we will see a very positive impact to the general fund because we will have retired our pension obligation bonds of $3 million. On December 28th, however, our UUT will expire, so as we move into 2029, we will see a $5.5 million drop in revenues unless we also address that. And then on the far horizon, we have the redevelopment bonds that will be retiring, and this is as a result of the dissolution of the RDA back in 2011, about that time frame. But once those bonds are paid off, we will see, again, a positive impact to our property taxes. And the first set of bonds will be paid off in October of 33, and the next set of bonds in October of 38. These are in 2022 dollars, so of course, looking in advance, there would be a 2% inflationary factor on property tax. But in today's dollars, it would essentially result in about a $3 million positive flow to the general fund. Next slide. So some of the key points from looking at these dates, there was an attached exhibit to the council packet, and I think what became very clear is that as a voter-approved measure, we must consider these ballot measures at a general election. So we're looking at 2022, 2024, 2026, et cetera. So our opportunity to address this issue is now, in 2022. In renewing in advance of the expiration, it creates fiscal certainty, not only to implement the general plan, but also to maintain staffing. In many cases, certainly in police, public safety, it takes quite a bit of planning and training to bring on staff, but all across the board, good, efficient staff need to be trained in order to be effective in their work. So plan ahead, avoid that fiscal cliff. The retirement bonds will help. They'll have a very positive impact, but it doesn't cover all the revenues that are generated by the voter-approved measures. Next slide, please. This slide is part of that long-term budget projections that the city made steps towards starting back in 2017, about that time frame, really looking in advance so that we're not lurching from year to year, trying to understand what our fiscal stability looks like in the future. So this is a 10-year forecast, and you can see that without renewal of the sales tax measures, and in this case, we're looking at 2025, without the renewal, there is a deficit, which would either require some other source of funding or cuts. And as I mentioned, the survey did test a 12-year extension that covers the entire length of the forecast model. Next, please. One of the other parts of the discussion that we had was about the sales tax and concern that it targeted Union City residents. I wanted to share with the council just an example of how the half-cent sales tax is applied. This is looking specifically at Union Landing, which is one of our largest sales tax generators. And as you can see by this is developed from a group called Placer AI. They do this kind of trade area analysis. That's what they do. This shows that in Union Landing, 80% of the trade is pulled from the area reaching as far north to Oakland down into Fremont, and it even comes from the peninsula area, such as Mountain View and other areas. When you look at Union City and South Hayward, which is the kind of the immediate radius to Union Landing, 40% of the trade comes just from Union City and South Hayward. So you can see that the whole sales tax area that we're drawing upon, we're taxing people outside our city, and that's what is so beneficial to the half-cent sales tax. It draws upon businesses from one end of the 880 corridor to the other. Groceries and prescriptions are not taxed, and I did take a look at our sales tax data again today before the meeting. 4 out of our 5 half-cent sales tax generators are from retailers along the 880 corridor. 4 out of 5 top. So of our top 5, 4 of those are from the retail centers along 880. Next slide. So in conclusion, 64% of the voters support an extension of the half-cent sales tax. The survey tested both until ended by voters or 12 years. Those were the 2 time frames that the survey looked at. The best time to place the ballot is now and not wait until 2024. Without the extension, new revenues or permanent cuts will be required. Sales tax does draw from the region. It not only relies on, it does tax locally, but it also pulls from the entire region. And again, it's not assessed on groceries or prescriptions. So next slide. If the council determines to move ahead, our next step would be to implement an informational communications plan, begin initiating stakeholder outreach, distributing informational messaging through direct mail, social media, and the like. develop a draft resolution and sales tax ordinance, which would be done through the city attorney. And specific dates we'd be targeting would be June 28th for a council meeting to discuss the draft resolution, July 12th to actually looking for council action on the resolution, and then it would be filed with the county August 12th. Last slide, please. And in conclusion, this evening, we are seeking council direction if we should proceed with the informational efforts for the proposed ballot measure, which would then be followed with the preparation of the ballot measure. And as a reminder, it does take 4/5 vote to place this on the ballot for the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan, for the presentation as well as the new information we didn't have a couple of weeks ago. So what we'll do, I'll do like I do, go down the line with council members for questions and comments, then I'll open it up for public comments, then I'll bring it back so the council can have further conversation and decide on a direction. So, Councilmember Duncan, I'm going to start with you, please.
Well, Mayor, as I said the last time we had this discussion, I was a member of the ad hoc subcommittee and did have the opportunity to work with the consulting team that did go out and talk with residents about this extension, and did have the opportunity to see much of this data that you're showing tonight, Joan, and this was very helpful to put it in perspective as to what this means. I do think that we should let the residents decide whether or not we extend this. It will allow the city to continue important services that we know our residents value and want based on what the survey data showed us. And I totally support moving forward with putting this out for the voters to decide and having the staff do the educational effort to inform the residents of what this would mean, when this would happen. Because I think there was some confusion about, we have this already in place and when will it take effect? And it will take effect when this existing measure expires, which would be 2025, as the data that Joan just showed us clarified. So I still think that it would be important for us to continue this effort and that we put it out for the residents to understand and to give them the opportunity to vote.
Thank you, Councilmember Duncan. And Councilmember Singh, your questions or comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question first, Joan, about the business license tax. If it gets on the next ballot, you think what kind of money it will generate approximately?
I'm not sure we have a good answer for that just yet, because it would depend upon the formula that we assess, and if we're going to be, based upon the HDL analysis, they had identified quite a bit of money, about $3 million, but when we looked closely at that information, it was clear that it would create exorbitant business license taxes that were well beyond what our neighboring cities charged, or what you might see, which requires us to do just a lot more research and bring it back to council to see what is the good fit for Union City. I do believe there is room for business license tax growth. I just don't know what that exact amount might be.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So first of all, I wanted to say we need to continue this conversation. I would like to thank the mayor and the city manager for giving a second opportunity to weigh in this issue. We are definitely heading in the right direction, and we need to continue to progress toward that. As I said in the last meeting, we need to find a common ground, and I'm glad to say we worked on that tirelessly, and I thought long and hard, and if we don't impose a half-cent sales tax on the city, we are not going to do very well and financially. Therefore, I propose a half-cent sales tax until 2034. Why 2034? Because, we, as the slide shows there, that we're going to get the money for the RDA and the pension bond fund. And hopefully we have the money by then for the business license tax. So that would make more sense to me. So I would go with from 2025 and on until 2034. And that's what I propose, 9 years. And, you know, and another thing I want to mention, we need to work together to bring more businesses like hotels and biotech companies. We need to work together and progress on those issues because we are lack of that, in my opinion. And, you know, hopefully we can look for those kind of opportunity and work together. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. And Councilmember Dacoscos.
I have made my position known that I am in support of extending the sales tax. Since this will be my last year in the city council, I want to leave the city in a stable financial situation. And it's not really, and I got the several reasons for supporting this one, the extension. For example, number one, we do not, there's no sales tax for food and prescription, which are basic needs of our community. Second is most buyers are, as pointed out by the report of Joan, are from outside of Union City. So it's not just the residents of Union City who will be burdened by the sales tax extension. And number three, the support of the community, as they have been doing for many years, is even higher this time, which is 64%. And we do not decide, the city council do not decide it by ourselves, but we're giving the community the vote whether they want the extension or not, and whether they want the services that they're enjoying right now to continue. And we have excellent staff. Some of them are overworked. This is, in fact, only this year that we're trying to give them still minimal raises compared to the other cities. We cannot hire some of our staff. People are leaving, and because they're overworked, they're doing, some of them are doing double, but they run the city really wonderfully. So anyway, just like what I said, I am supporting this one, Mayor, and I hope I'll get the 4 votes tonight.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Dacoscos. And Vice Mayor Patino.
As many of you remember, last meeting, I spoke out very strongly against the half-cent sales tax. And I believe in my core that it is not true economic stability. It's smoke and mirrors. But I've been thinking about it, and I see that it might cause too much chaos right now, considering we're just coming out of the pandemic. I do not think in my core, though, that it is the right course long-term to do this. But for the sake of the city and the sake of cohesion on this city council, I will go along with it, and to give our employees the peace of mind knowing that you will be okay. We just put up these agreements, agreed to them with the different bargaining units, and they will be honored. They would have been honored regardless. I gave you guys my word, but if this is what it takes to calm everything down, I'll go along with it. I do agree with Councilmember Singh that 9 years would be sufficient. That, along with the 2 years and 11 months left on the current half-cent sales tax, that brings us up to just under 12 years that this would be in effect till the the pension bond is, retires, and then the development, bond retires. That should give us plenty of time. The reason why I do not want a 12-year extension is because that would bring us out to 15 years. That would mean that any of the people that get elected to city council in November, even if they served all 3 terms, would never have a say on whether to stop this, lower it, or extend it. So, yeah, and that's a long time. I was doing the math. In 15 years, I'll be filing for Medicare. And out of deference to the rest of my council members, I won't say how old you guys will be in 15 years. But, you know, I think that we have to let our future leaders of Union City have a say in what happens here financially. And I think 9 years is responsible on top of the 2 years and 11 months that is already left on this current half-cent sales tax. So I will go along with the 9-year extension, and we can move forward and move on to other things like getting this ACE train over here and all these other ideas that we've been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the last meeting, I did make it known that I supported the half-cent sales tax, and in the 2 weeks since the last meeting, I think it's become crystal clear in terms of the timeline and the graph that was shown in the staff report in terms of the projections of known revenues and expiration of those revenues into making our decisions that are data-based and not just emotional-based, or we don't know for sure where the revenue is going to come from yet, but let's make a decision without the facts. So I'm very pleased this evening to see the result of the 2-week period that's transpired with that clear chart of, yes, we're going to continue this. Hopefully the voters will do that to give us the stability. We will have pension obligation bonds retiring. We will have redevelopment agency bonds retiring. But in the meantime, what I'd like to remind you of, the claim clear as we were having these conversations about revenues is also expenditures and what's going to be happening in the next several years. Our fire contract is projected to go up $640,000 per year. So in 3 years' time, that's going to be an increase of just under $2 million. We have deferred maintenance on everything in the city. Our police department has water dripping on them. The tiles and the floor is coming up. That's just the police department. Every building has deferred maintenance. And then there's asset acquisition. We're purchasing a new fire truck. The price tag on that's $1 million. Police cars continually need to be purchased. Street equipment, just everything. So while we're looking at the revenue side of the equation about money that's going to come and go, these expenses are not going to disappear. And our strategic plan, the goal for employee retention and recruitment, I think this decision this evening, it will be up to the voters now as we move forward, but this decision at least shows a unified council so that employees that are thinking about coming to Union City will have this to look forward to for the stability, and employees that are here now can see the stability. So now what I will do is open it up to the audience. I have 2 speaker cards, and we'll bring it back for some additional conversation and move on with this item. So the 2 speakers I have, I'll start first with Lee Gio. So Lee, if you'd like to come on up, name and address for the record, please.
Mayor and Council, my name is Lee Gio. My address is 30526 Mallorca Way here in Union City. As a resident and as one of the people who will hopefully be voting for this, I just wanted to mention that in a general sense, if you think about where we are today in the economy, we've had COVID. Our interest rates just went up by 0.5%. Rumors are they're going to go up by possibly another 0.75%. Some economists are saying it's going to be very difficult to reduce the inflation without creating a recession. The point is, with all of what we have said about specifics, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. In my business, electronic business, the cost of importing and the logistics cost, I should say, of bringing some product, connex of product into the U.S. has increased recently 3 times over what it was before. We can look at the gas prices. All of this, we are in an unsure time as to what will happen in the future. So based on that, and based on the fact that the information that we have seen this evening, that 60%, 60+% of our residents agree with this, and that it is an extension of an existing tax, to me, it seems like a slam dunk. We should do this. We should put it in front of the voters, let them come back to us, and see what they say. But we need to make sure that we have the money that we need as a city for the future. I look at Fremont, I look at Hayward and what they do for the homeless. I look at the amount of business income that they have. I don't know the details, but I can see that, I can assume that their governments are getting a lot more money as a percentage from their business income. So all of these things to me add up to say, as a resident, yes, I definitely would vote for this. So I'd also like to compliment Councilmember Singh and Councilmember Patino on your conservatism and also the fact that you realize that maybe at this point it's worthwhile to bring it to the voters. So that's all I had, and I'm out of time. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. And our next speaker will be Kevin Finnerty. And Kevin, name and address for the record, please. Yeah, press the button. There you go. I got it.
My name's Kevin Finnerty. Address is 4567 Fellow Street, Union City, and I am a resident. And I, too, am looking forward to voting in favor of this initiative in December. Or, I'm sorry, in November. You know, this is not on this. We've been down this path before as a city. Financial and fiscal security and having fiscal resources is so critical. I ask you to think back to 2008. When the city faced uncertain times during the course of the recession. Quite honestly, it was a tough time for the city. We didn't have the fiscal resources that we are beginning to build today, and we lost employees. We either through layoffs or we froze hiring. We had cutbacks in services, or services did not get started because we did not have the funding. So I think it's absolutely critical that we have the fiscal security. And since that time, we have been digging ourselves out of this fiscal hole. I think it's critically important that we continue to build the fiscal resources for the city. I actually enjoy what we have in the city, as do my neighbors. This is the 4th city I've lived in the state of California. I've lived in others. I choose to live here in Union City because we have a solid infrastructure, because we have good city staff. I like what I see when I go out in the morning. My streets are clean. I feel safe in my home. And the emergency services, I think, are excellent for the type of services that we do receive. This is a city I choose to live in. And a lot of people look at the taxes, and I think that when we look at taxes, we got to distinguish what's a good tax and what's a bad tax. And I quite honestly believe this is a good tax. It's good for this city. It's going to be good for the future of this city. And we are pulling resources from around the region to fund this. And so I think that this is an initiative that needs to go before the people, in November. And thank you very much, Council, for considering this, and I'm looking forward to the supermajority. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? I don't see anybody. Anna, do we have anybody left in our Zoom audience? Okay, there is, but no hand is raised. Thank you. Okay, I will go ahead and bring it back then. And Joan, can I ask a question, please, Joan? So the question is in terms of timing. Councilmember Singh did mention 2034. So your chart in the staff report shows that the RDA bonds will be retired in October of 2033. So would the intention be 2034 that this sales tax measure, if the council agrees to that term, that would expire April 34, so that would be a quarter or a couple of quarters after the RDA bonds are retired?
To catch up with you, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to pull up the chart.
Yeah, I love that chart. I think it's great.
So with the half-cent sales tax expiring in April of 2025, a 9-year extension would take it to April of 2034.
Okay.
Which would be shortly after the retirement of the first set of RDA bonds, which is October of 33,
right,
as you stated. So, yeah,
okay.
Right?
So that doesn't leave us with any hole then, so to speak, because the sales tax would retire or expire after the RDA bonds, so that will start bringing that revenue in.
That's
okay.
Correct.
So I've heard the Vice Mayor agree with Councilmember Singh's suggestion for that time period. So Councilmember Duncan, would that be okay with you?
I think at this point it's important that we continue the sales tax, and if 9 is what we could get the council to support, I'd certainly support it. The work of the subcommittee did not look at 9. We looked at and surveyed 12 years, and we surveyed until the voters choose to discontinue it. So we didn't survey the 9, and I'm not quite sure of the analysis that went behind coming up with the number 9, but I do think it's important that we move forward with this, and I would certainly support it.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Duncan. And Councilmember Gurkoskas, your thoughts on that time frame?
9 years is reasonable, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's why I like this chart so much, because it does show the revenue, the additional revenue that will be coming in that we don't have now from the pension obligation bonds and the RDA bonds expiring. And in my mind, I still think it's 12 years anyway, because if the voters vote on it in 2022, 12 years is 2034. So, so it's the way you spin things. But in any case, so tonight we don't need to take a vote. It was just to provide direction, and I think you've heard the direction here. All 5 of us, I'm hearing, agree to April 1, 2034. When I might be clear, tonight the goal was to make sure that there would be something that we would agree to place on the ballot, because the goal was to continue on now with the informational outreach. We actually will not be voting on this until July 12th. And the reason for that is, under the law, once we officially decide to put it on the ballot, then our informational outreach has to stop, because it would be considered campaigning at that point. So that being said, I do believe then you have the direction from all 5 of us to move forward with the informational outreach, and to move forward was talked about originally.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we'll move forward with the informational outreach, and the city attorney will begin preparing the resolution and ordinance for your consideration at the end of June.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, that being said, we're moving on to sections 8, 9, 10, and 11, which have nothing for us. And section 12 is items referred by council. So Vice Mayor Patino, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yes, I had two meetings. They're pretty much related. On the 28th, I had my Governance, Transparency, and Labor Relation Policy Committee, and that's part of the League of California Voters. We were asked to, we were given an update on AB 1944, which is the revision of the Brown Act by Assemblymember Lee. That has actually moved to the Outer Committee and is now being about to be voted on the Assembly floor. So that's good news. We were also asked to take a stand on two bills, SB 1328, which would prohibit investment in Russia and Belarus, and on SB 1173, which would tell PERS and the other state retirement systems to divest and no new investment in fossil fuels. So we took a no vote on that, not to do that, and there were for the one in Russia and Belarus, that was because it was too broad, and it was $100 billion that they would have to divest, and it also would hurt some companies such as Pepsi and McDonald's that have closed their operations but are still paying their employees, so even though that they've stopped operation. And for the fossil fuel, we actually had the luxury of having the PERS finance people there, and they said that this was that narrowing what they could invest in ties one hand behind their back, and it would have come back and bite us later because then they'd have to lower the discount rate, and the cities would have to pay more into to make up that difference. So that's why the majority voted no on both of those. Those were the only two things. Oh, and the League of California Cities on Cinco de May 5th, we had the legislative forum, and I just told them what we did. That was it.
Excellent. Thank you for that report. And Councilmember Gakoskas.
I didn't have any meeting, Mayor. Tomorrow I have my Housing Commission meeting.
Oh, this is the one where you have to go?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, okay. Well, good thing it's just a little bit after 9. We'll get you home in plenty of time to get some rest. Okay, and Councilmember Singh.
I had just one meeting, Chamber of Commerce, so we're setting up the fundraising dinner at the Jerry's Grill on June 15th.
June 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will invite everybody.
Now, I'm just thinking of my schedule. What time, where, wait a minute. No, I know, but that's
Wednesday.
I'm just thinking I'm coming back from Washington, D.C. from the MTC trip on the 15th, and I'll get dessert, because I think I get back like at 8 o'clock or something that night. Okay, okay, and Councilmember Duncan?
Mayor, I haven't had any meetings since our last council meeting.
Okay, good enough, thank you. Well, speaking of transportation, let me tell you what I've got. Well, actually, first, what I'll do is talk about the Alameda County Mayor's Conference and the issues around homelessness, because I see Dave is still in the audience, so that way he can hear what's going on. So this week, the Alameda County Board of Supervisors was scheduled to approve the Home Together 2026 Community Plan, which is going to lay out the goals and strategies and investments needed to dramatically reduce and combat the disparities in homelessness. The plan will also include a framework for the city and county partnership, which was unanimously approved by the Alameda County mayors and the entire Board of Supervisors. So this framework will be the foundation for the future collaboration in the collective fight to end homelessness. The idea is to continue to advocate for flexible funding from the state budget to leverage other local and federal resources to tackle the crisis. And we're urging the governor to include $3 billion over the next 3 years of homeless housing and assistance program funds in the 22-23 budget. So in any case, the issue, of course, is that the county brings a service and expertise to the table that we as cities don't have at our disposal, like the public health department, the behavioral health services, and healthcare providers. So on the city side, of course, in the partnership, we, of course, have to navigate with our local zoning issues and delivering outreach for the homelessness interventions, and certainly work together closely with the home to execute, the Home Together community plan. So what I was reading was actually excerpts from a letter that the majority of mayors in Alameda County signed. I think this was another one that went to my blocked site because I didn't see the letter until today, and they asked for signatures by last week. So that's why Union City's name didn't actually make it to the letter. But that being said, I will also mention, again, around homelessness, that I did receive an email from Bloomberg Harvard program. They're inviting the alumni from the program as well as the current mayors that are in the program for a 2-hour session on May 24th to talk about the novel approaches around homelessness. So we'll be collaborating with Community Solutions, which is a nonprofit focused on creating a lasting end to homelessness. So in any case, I will be attending that on May 24th, and I'm hopeful that there's something I'll be able to bring back to help aid us as we're dealing with homelessness in our city. So that was all Alameda County Mayor's Conference stuff. So for the transportation items, I do want to mention, I'll start with ACTC because this directly impacts Union City. And you all may recall a while back we heard about the improvements that are going to be taking place at I-80, Whipple Road interchange and industrial and what have you. So yesterday it was in front of our program projects committee to move it to the next step. So we did agree to move forward and award the contract for the plan specifications and engineering to Mark Thomas and Associates. Now, this is a very expensive proposition in that the entire project is over, well, it totals about $220 million in today's dollars. The Whipple Road interchange is going to be about $60 million in the industrial because they're combining the next intersection or the next freeway crossing as well, which is industrial, which is a $44 million proposition. But Mark Thomas's phase is going to take about 40 months, a very long time because it's very complex with everything that they're dealing with. So they're going to start with the Sequa and Nepa phases because what the distinction is, Nepa, the federal environmental clearance, is so that federal dollars can be applied for. You heard me talk about it earlier under ACE, and that was the reason why, to make sure if there's federal funding that they can get, that they can, and the same thing with our project, to get some federal money into that as well. So still, it's a project that's going to take several years, but we'll see which gets here first, this project being completed or ACE to Union City. But in any case, that being said, I know that ACE, because in a meeting earlier in the day yesterday, ACE is approaching the state of California to go after some trade corridor funds to help with the ACE project. And, back to Whipple Road, I'm looking at the bottom of my notes. One of the things that I mentioned, as we all know, when we go under that Whipple Road area, is that bicyclists and pedestrians cannot safely get through there. There's a teeny-weeny little sidewalk on the one side. So the nice thing is the plans currently show on both sides of that freeway underpass a 14-foot area for multimodal folks. So be it bicyclists or walking folks or what have you, there'll be 14 feet on either side, so it'll be very nice. And as I mentioned to the city manager yesterday, ACTC staff will be working with Union City staff and our bike ped committee as part of our master plan to plan that. So in any case, I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. And as far as ACTC goes, as I mentioned earlier today with the email that was blocked, that I will be in Washington, D.C. next week advocating for federal funds, and my part of the presentation will be to talk about highways to boulevards, which Union City would be involved with, because that's part of that is the East 14th Mission Boulevard all the way to the county line going through Union City and Fremont. So I'll be advocating for additional funding for that, as well as other projects in Alameda County and Valley Link. So that's my assignment. And with MTC, let me see there what I wanted to talk about. Nothing more in my notes, because MTC is about Valley Link conversations, but we heard a little bit about Valley Link tonight, so I think what I will say about Valley Link, though, is they've only worked on Sequa clearance, so now they're saying, oh, this is very expensive, we better start on the Nepa clearance, so now it's going to take an additional 2 years, they're guessing, to get Nepa clearance for some federal funding in the Valley Link project. So in any case, as you heard this evening, transportation is just so complex, it's not even funny, and we're very lucky to have you, Mary Lou, a former Caltrans employee and Mark Thomas employee and everything else to help us get through all of this. In any case, that being said, that's enough for my report. Let's then go on to 13, good of the order. So, Vice Mayor Patino, have you anything for good of the order this evening?
I'd just like to thank the city manager, Mary Lou, and Public Works. We had an issue with a bunch of dumping there in the Dakota neighborhood, and they came out and cleaned it up. It was, I couldn't believe how bad it was on the corner of 11th and E. It had been piled up pretty good there. The little trail behind my house where I walk my dog, pretty bad, and then someone just dumped a chair and a bunch of trash right on East Street, right there between 7th and 8th. So thank you for getting that. I know trash is a problem, dumping's a problem across town, but it's good to see when it's gone. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. And Councilmember Gakoskas?
Yeah, on May 1st, we kick off the Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month we have the API Elected Officials Summit, and it was good that it was held in Newark, the DoubleTree. And we talk about the challenges and successes of API elected officials, and the officials are coming from the feds, federal government, federal, state, county, and local officials. One feature that happened was, instead of providing us name tags, they provided us a black jacket with our names on it.
Oh, why didn't you wear it tonight?
And good food, hey.
Oh, where's yours, Gary? Yeah, you were there.
Gary
I
didn't
asked her
get
to
it.
bring it for me. She did.
Too bad for you. Okay, that's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. And Councilmember Singh?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask that we haven't had a EDAT meeting this year, so I would look forward to having a meeting soon. I don't know when, but
I see Carmela coming up. I think you'll have an answer.
Thank you, Carmela.
As I say, this is Carmela's first time at the microphone.
It is. Thank you for your patience. Yes, we are working to plan for an EDAT meeting. As you know, we have hired management partners to prepare an economic development white paper, and so we were going to be also presenting that to EDAT along with some other items. So I anticipate the meeting will happen in the next month or so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Carmela.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
All righty, Councilmember and Councilmember Duncan.
Nothing for good of the order, Mayor.
Okay, and I don't think I have anything either. So that being said, there's nothing left on the rest of the agenda, so our meeting is adjourned. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks on May 24th.